Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're going to discuss the start of the Minnesota legislative session. This is Tim Walz's final stand. I know this sounds crazy, but he will not be governor next year when the legislature gavels in. When they gavel in, we will have a new governor. Likely Amy Klobuchar at this point. Maybe the Republicans could pull off the upset. But it ain't going to be Tim Walz. He ain't running again, which is a great victory for Minnesota. This episode is brought to you by Alpine Chemistry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota, outside the liberal zombie apocalypse, where you can breathe easier. Life is much better. Greater Minnesota, as they call it. Go check out Alpine Chemistry in St. Cloud, Minnesota. Also brought to you by Elite Guardian. MN.com. We just had a class. It's a Minnesota permit to carry class last night. A lot of fun, a lot of great students in there. If you're looking to get your permit to carry, I don't have my next classes available yet, but check EliteGuardianMN.com for the most recent update. We'll probably have something figured out by the end of the week. All right. If you want to interrupt me at any time, just hit that Rumble Red button. I am going to be going through a lot of stuff. We're going to keep this one pretty fast pace here because there's a lot to get into. And I try to do these within an hour because I know a lot of you guys like to watch after the fact. What is going on? Open system settings to share your window. Oh, what the heck's going on? Okay, give me a second. Looks like... Are we still live? Oh, man. I just cut myself out, apparently. Some setting wasn't right on my browser that I'm doing this in, and it just cut it out. Sorry about that. I'm granted one mistake, right? Okay, now I'm good to go. Jeez, low end production value over here. Also go into the live chat. Let me know where you guys are watching from. All right, let's get into it. So basically, the Minnesota legislative session, this is a non-budget year, which are election years. And so they don't meet until mid-February. Today's February 17th. So it's the start of the legislative session. They still adjourn by late May. All right. So Brad's giving me crap, says show prep. Yeah, I know. I get it. That's what happens. Laser Jim says still live. Good. I'm glad I'm still live. I can see myself here. So they meet February 17th to, I think it's like somewhere around the 20th of May. It's the first Monday after the last, or the third Saturday, something like that. And then they're done until Election Day, unless there's a special session. And then they come back next year, and Walz won't be there, right? And that'll be the budget year, and they're going to try to pass another 2-year budget. So that's how the Minnesota legislature works. This is unprecedented because a lot of us have gotten used to the 8 years of Tim Walz. And may I say, it hasn't gone well for us, right? And during that time, we've had Republican majorities in the House and Senate. We've had Democrat majorities in the House and Senate. And we've had splits, right? Currently, the House is tied 67-67 with a Republican speaker. And then the Democrats have one-person majority in the Senate. So those are the dynamics. And you may ask, what is the agenda for Tim Walz and the Democrats? And what's the agenda of the Republicans? So let's start out with the Democrats, because let's just be honest, they're the ones calling the shots. The Republicans are a bunch of cowards in the state. So here is the Democrats, in their own words, what this legislative session is going to be about.
My name is John Beeler. I'm the Policy Counsel for the American Civil Liberties Union of Minnesota. I'd like to thank Majority Leader Murphy and Caucus Leader Stevenson for inviting us here today to quantify and contextualize what has occurred in Minnesota these past few months. What we have witnessed in the last 2 months is one of the largest deprivations of constitutional protections in the history of our state. It has touched every corner of our state, every aspect of daily life, and the full extent of the harms of Operation Metro Surge are just beginning to be felt and to be tallied. Minnesotans have been detained, Minnesotans have been disappeared, and Minnesotans have been killed by reckless, unaccountable federal agents. The Department of Homeland Security, Customs and Border Protection, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement have trampled on our constitutional protections, violating the First, Second, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth, and 10th Amendments. The ACLU.
Okay, let me just stop right there. So the Democrats open up. This is yesterday. Both Democrats and Republicans held a press conference yesterday at the Capitol. Democrats open up with the House and the Senate in a joint conference, and they start with not a legislator, somebody from the ACLU. All right, talking about an injustice to rights, including the Second Amendment. Let's remind people here. Alex Preddy was a permit to carry holder in Minnesota, legally carrying, right? Oh, I know he didn't have his ID on him, but that's a petty misdemeanor. He did have a permit to carry. Also had multiple magazines. He was carrying a P320, 6-hour P320, which has, 17-round capacity, something like that, right? So way more than 10 rounds. I'll get into that in just a bit. Talk about a bill that's been introduced. So Democrats kind of sounding like they're in support of the Second Amendment. Of course, there's support of the First Amendment right now. They weren't during COVID, but apparently they're part of the First Amendment, except for if you're peacefully participating in a church service, then, we can interrupt it. So they started with ACLU. Then they bring up the next guest. This is Aaron May Quaid, state senator from Egan area.
I'm Senator Aaron May Quaid. I represent Senate District 56, Rosemount, Apple Valley, and Egan. The result of Operation Metro Surge, which is not over yet, I want to be very clear. We are still seeing activity in our communities. We are still having our neighbors kidnapped. We are still having observers being aggressively targeted and people being detained. This has brought generational devastation. This is something that Trump and Republicans have brought because Republicans in Minnesota will not stand up to him. Despite the messaging of the drawdown, this is not over. The day that the drawdown was announced, Jesus Flores, a father of 6, 2 of whom have disabilities, was lured out of his house with a ruse of a broken down car and then violently detained and taken away.
Okay, you can tell she's also going to be talking about ICE operations as well. Let's go to the next speaker. The next speaker is a business owner of Mexican restaurants.
My name is Genaro J.D. Delgado, and as a small business owner actively involved in the restaurant industry in Minnesota, I have firsthand witnessed the severe impact of ICE action on restaurant properties. Many of my family members and friends own Mexican restaurants, and we have experienced firsthand the chaos that has ensued due to the fears instilled by ICE agents.
Okay, there you go. Mexican restaurant talking about the damage to restaurant industry during ICE operations. I'm going to move ahead. Their next speaker is another person from the business community.
Minnesotans that you represent. My name is Sarah Lakowicz. I own and operate a small construction business in Cottage Grove. I am a 3rd-generation contractor, and I am incredibly proud of my company, and my crew is like my family, and that is why I'm here today. Last week, I was in a meeting with over 40 other contractors, large and small. Normally, at this point of the year, we're talking about contracts, strategy, finances. This time, because of the actions of federal agents, the conversation was really different. We found ourselves asking a question no one of us expected to ask. How do we protect our workers from our own government? I gotta tell you, this was not on my bingo card.
Okay, another person talking about ICE immigration operations. All right, so you see a pattern here. Democrats starting out all on message, all on one issue, and I'll be honest with you, whether you agree with me where I think ICE went too far, and I think that the Trump administration, and they recognized it, that they had a problem, and this is what part of the reason they had to pull out, or you are just in tune with this center-right, conservative talking points where this has been tremendous success and was needed and all that kind of stuff. And they handle themselves appropriately in all situations, which is an insane position. But if you have that position, it doesn't matter. The population here in Minnesota is more sympathetic to the Democrat side, and it was a big issue in the last month. If you go back 2 months ago, Minnesota, it was fraud. That's all it was. It was annoying the Democrats that they had to discuss fraud. Tim Walz dropped out of the governor's race reluctantly. Sorry, he didn't drop out. He was pretty much told, you need to get out of this race. You're causing us a loss. We can see the polling data, all that stuff. We were on a surge. The fraud was being exposed. And then this happened. It started with it started with a lot of probably decent raids, right? You can't deny that ICE has actually gone after some of the bad people. But the left got mobilized, and then they're shooting Renee Good, right? And then other things, and we reported here violations of people's rights in Minnesota, asking for paperwork. That's ridiculous, okay? And then it went to Alex Preddy's life being taken away as well. I mean, that is one of the most, salient issues here in the state of Minnesota. And the Democrats are focused on it, including our next speaker, Lee Finke, otherwise known as Chris Finke.
Good morning. My name is Lee Finke. I use she, her pronouns. I represent District 66A in the Minnesota House of Representatives. I'm carrying two bills this session targeting the actions of the secret police in the state of Minnesota. The first require all law enforcement at all levels not to wear masks while on duty, with some specific exemptions for health and public safety. The second will require all vehicles intended to detain human individuals to be marked law enforcement vehicles and have safety mechanisms in them for the safe transportation.
Okay, so let's find some common ground, Lee Finke, Chris Finke. This is the bill. This is let's see, it's HF 3412. This was just introduced today. Finke's this main author, and then there's 33 co-authors, and just doing a quick peruse of this thing, it's all Democrats. All right. So let's go into this. This is it's basically changing Minnesota statute 609-735, which is labeled concealing identity. Does that sound familiar to you folks? Does that sound familiar? We may have said that statute many times during COVID, because when Tim Walz unilaterally declared that there's going to be a mask mandate, we all talked about this statute, which reads, and this is how you read Minnesota law, if it's not underlined or not strucken through, that is what the original language of the bill is. And it says, a person whose identity is concealed by the person in a public place by means of a robe, mask, or other disguise, unless based on religious beliefs or incidental to amusement, entertainment, protection from weather, well, that's how I read it, winter, or medical treatment, is guilty of a misdemeanor, meaning a mask mandate is contrary to the Minnesota state law, and it's a misdemeanor. So when Governor Walz issued a mask mandate, which we were very much against, mostly because they're useless cloth masks that don't do anything, and I would argue are worse because, maybe if someone's got COVID, they should wear a mask just as a way for people to understand, look at that person, I better give them wide berth. That was my original reason to be against the mask mandates, because then it neutralizes, it gives people a false sense of security. And it's a false sense of security because these cloth masks were useless. So we talked about 609-735 all the time. And now it looks like, what do we have here? 34 Democrats that apparently are aware of that law. Where were they during COVID? But they're aware of that law, and I kind of agree with them. I have a problem with federal masked agents in our cities. I think that's a problem. Now, we understand why that happens. We understand why agents don't want to be disclosed to the public or have their face identified. But I think it's way worse having no accountability to the public. Remember, you have to look at this not through the lens of right now. You have to look at this in the lens of a long term. Do you fear a federalized police force in our city, in our state? Do you recognize the threat to liberty there? Let's move beyond these, hypocritical Democrats. I mean, this is the topic du jour. They'll move on to another topic tomorrow, right? These morons were doing No King protest this summer, acting as Trump is more of a king than Joe Biden was, or more than Tim Walz was. You know, Tim Walz, who unilaterally shut down businesses and forced you in your home and decided who's essential, not essential, and then created mask mandates against state laws. So these guys will move on. They'll have a new topic. They're not consistent. I'm not arguing for the Democrats' consistency. I'm arguing that they're better on messaging because they're staying on topic here. But I kind of agree with this idea that we shouldn't have masked federal agents. This is Lee Finke's bill, Chris Finke, as we call him. So it adds after weather protection from smoke, gas, or other airborne toxin. By the way, I was kayaking on the St. Croix River a couple years ago, and I think it must have been 2022, maybe it was 23. And there was somebody kayaking with a mask, a cloth mask down the river. And I was just like, oh my God, you crazy leftist, you're fearful of COVID. And then it hit me. It was like the summer of all those Canadian fires. I'm like, oh, maybe they're actually trying to, I don't think it works, but trying to do it for that reason. So I can understand that sense. Yeah, you should be able to mask. I mean, quite frankly, in a free society, people should be free to do that kind of stuff, right? And you also should be free from any mandate that you must wear a mask. So, and I think airborne toxin, does that include COVID? Is that what their idea is here? Or is that just pollution? It kind of sounds more like pollution. So then Chris Finke ends up adding this to the law. It says this section does not apply to a peace officer as defined in section 624, blah, 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 or a federal law enforcement as defined there while performing official duties as an undercover. So basically it's saying it does apply to both local and federal law enforcement agencies, unless two things: an undercover officer and concealment of the officer's identity is necessary to preserve the integrity of the investigation or the officer's safety, or two, a member of a tactical response team when a face mask will substantially reduce a known risk of serious permanent disfigurement to the officer's face. More of like a protective thing here. Okay, so giving some outs. I have really not much of a problem with that bill. Okay, I'm just going to be honest with you, and I think there could be a great compromise, right? Don't you guys think we could have a really good compromise here? How about Chris Finke and all these Democrat authors get on board with the Never Again bill so that we make sure a state governor, right, the governor of the state of Minnesota, can never unilaterally instruct us to wear masks, to roll up our sleeves, get vaccinations, shut down businesses, because you guys are opposed to an imposing tyrannical government, right? Aren't you guys opposed to that? Isn't that what the heart of this legislative session is? You're against a tyrannical government. I am too, federal government and state government. That's why I was sounding off during COVID. So we'll sign on to your bill, this mask bill. I like that. I like that state statute. That's a good state statute. And yes, I think law enforcement should be wearing masks, and I think those are two decent exemptions. So yes, let's unify over this one, right? I don't know. We'll see. I doubt it. Does anyone believe for a second they would come on board with that? I don't know about that. Let's go to the comment section. We got K-Wall for life. Welcome, K-Wall for life. The problem is the Democrats will find a way to circumvent any law. Yes, that is correct. Yes, don't go to them with any kind of consistency. Tucker 91, the federal police force and MSP, sure, 100% for it. They brought it upon themselves. I don't know. Maybe I missed the context of that one. Brad Ganser says, if you add an automatic 5 years to any criminal sentence, if you wore a mask in the commission of the crime, yeah, we should add another 5 years, right? We should have a law against wearing cat burglar outfits when you enter homes. Maybe stiffen the penalties if a state senator wants to go into the house of her mother-in-law, or sorry, stepmother. I always get that screwed up. Stepmother. If you're not from Minnesota, you might not get that joke. Okay, let's go back to Lee Finke here.
These
Chris
are easy
Finke.
policies to understand and get behind. We should be able to go into the House and get not just the one vote we need to pass them, but countless Republican votes to support these. And yet we have heard no indication from Republicans at any level in Minnesota to support these reasonable responses to this out-of-control behavior. In fact, all we have heard from our Minnesota GOP colleagues is that we should let the secret police continue to carry out more state violence against the people of Minnesota. They do not want to stop it. They want to enable it. They want to assist this federal government in covering it up.
I mean, you just heard me. I'm on board with this thing. As long as you're on board with our bill, the Never Again bill. Let's be unified against tyranny of government, right? Can we get on board with that? But yeah, I could understand a lot of Republicans just, kowtow to the administration on this kind of thing, which, let's be honest, all of them are talking like this is not the right thing. The reality is the ICE Operation Metro Surge was not a success, okay? I mean, maybe if someone in this comment section thinks it is, let me know, but I think most people deemed it a failure, and I'm still kind of like torn on like what was the whole point of this thing. Was it like some kind of social experiment? Did it have good intentions? I mean, there's so many lies by Kristi Noem and Greg Bovino, like it was ridiculous. And thankfully, Trump showed leadership, brought in Tom Homan, quelled the situation, and we move on because it looked like it was going to get very bad. Call me Moon. new listener, new follower. To quote the Princess Bride, good God, what is that thing? That is a male. Back for Liberty. William, good to see you. I like that Democrats are anti-big government now. Yes, for now. Let's see how long that lasts. Not long. Not long at all. We know that. Okay, I got to move ahead here. Zach Stevenson talks about the will of the people. Let's go to this here. So Zach Stevenson is the new, 21. Let's see here. Where am I? 21. All right, let's go with this.
Sealing federal state law. How can state lawmakers hold the federal government accountable and make it enforceable?
How can they hold the federal government accountable? Which I'm for. Let's let the states rise up against the federal government, tyrannical federal government. They should have done this during the mask mandates under Joe Biden. That would have been a great time to do this, right? I'm just so much against an encroaching federal government. The federal government is not what it was originally designed to be. It's way too big. It's too imposing on the states. States need to rise up and assert their rights, right? I've never heard the Democrats ever talk about the Constitution and the 10th Amendment as much as I've heard them just today, like the last 2 days. It's crazy. Anyhow, Zach Stevenson, who fits the B in the LGTB community, he takes the microphone here.
I think that we're seeing, actually not just in Minnesota, around the country, that this is the age of states kind of asserting themselves. And I think there are a lot of opportunities to do that. Some things that are common sense. Representative Finke's bill, as you heard, applies to all law enforcement in Minnesota, local, state, federal. Leader Long has a bill that I think is, passed in a few other states that would allow Minnesotans to hold the federal government accountable as well. So I think there are a lot of avenues here. We're realistic about the prospects legislatively. We know that whatever we do is going to be challenged in court, but some things are worth fighting for. And if we're not going to fight for this,
okay, I got to stop right there. You hear the Democrats on this. Jesse and I complained how the Republicans just took Supreme Court rulings and they're like, all right, we're not going to touch this thing. We're just going to hand over the legislature to Steve Simon. This was last year. And the Democrats are like, yeah, we know it's going to be challenged in court. We're moving ahead. We're taking leadership. This is the problem that all of us have is the Democrats in the state are wackadoodles. I mean, there's no solution from the Democrat Party whatsoever. But you have to admire their ability to stay on message. They do a whole press conference on that issue. That sets the tone for legislative session. And that they were actually willing to stand up and fight on that issue, right? Which I would argue is because a concerted effort of building from the ground up and pushing up more progressive candidates. And if the right wants to do this, they got to stop backing stupid, lame old, run-of-mill, milquetoast Republican candidates for governor and all that, and build from the ground up to get more conservative, more principled liberty candidates elected to the legislature, right? At least what Action for Liberty is doing. Should be unified with the Republican base on that, right? But no, they want to chase these high positions against the Democrat machine, and they're just going to get their asses handed to them, right? Because the Democrats know what they're doing. And by the way, once again, I got to say, the Democrats have no solution here. It's very sad. So it's so interesting to hear them talk so much about rights here. You know, I've never heard them talk about this much. Let's go. You even can hear Tim Walz. This is Tim Walz's press conference last week. Even Tim Walz is talking about the rights in the Constitution here. Let's go to Tim Walz right here.
That's what's happened. So nothing has been changed. They continued to ask me. One of their demands is that I ask people to be peaceful in their protesting. That's an easy thing for me to do because that's what I said. But I'm not going to ask them to not be on the streets. I'm not going to ask them to give up their constitutional, their First Amendment rights, their Second Amendment rights, Amendment rights, and for the state, the 10th Amendment rights. So what I've been telling you is,
you heard it. 10th Amendment rights and Second Amendment rights. 10th Amendment, in case you guys aren't aware, is those rights not given to the federal government belong to the states and the people thereof. Yeah, you don't really hear this, the Democrats talking about that one too often, but they're talking about it now. Asserting states' rights. Let's get on board states' rights. Let's go all the way down the road, right? Of course, they don't want to talk about asserting state rights when it comes to violations of the Second Amendment. And they even are bringing up the Second Amendment, and I find it so laughable. Here is, obviously today, there's a bunch of new bills, and if we look at the Minnesota legislative bills, and this is from Democrat on guns, we got agreement, possession of semi-automatic military-style assault weapons and large-capacity ammunition magazines banned and criminal penalties provided. So Greenman wants to turn us into felons. Possession of semi-automatic military-style assault weapons banned and criminal penalties provided. Greenman, once again, turn us into felons. Sale and possession of ghost guns prohibited. 3D printing of guns limited to federally licensed firearm manufacturers. Distribution of 3D printer firearms design files prohibited. Firearms serial numbers required. They don't like guys like Walker Anderson running around free with some weapon without an arbitrary serial number on it. Mueller, certain firearm permit data classified as public and retention required extended. And then Tabke, this clown, possession of large capacity ammunition magazines banned. Let's go ahead and look at Tabke's bills, which has 33 co-authors on it. All the usual suspects here, which I would imagine all fit in the LGBTQ, right? They pretty much have it all covered. Yeah, Corinne, Kozlowski, Finke. Do we have Stevenson right there? You got it. You got them all. This bill bans large capacity magazines, which are defined as any feeding device with a capacity to accept more than 10 rounds. And if you are caught with it, it's unlawful to person to manufacture, import, transfer, or own or possess large capacity magazines. And if you are caught with it, a person who violates subdivision 2 is guilty of a felony and may be sentenced to imprisonment for not more than 5 years or to payment of a fine of not more than $25,000 or both. Folks, they all rallied Alex Preddy's cause. Alex Preddy was shot and killed and had a Sig Sauer P320 on him. Was that magazine capacity 17? What is it? I don't own one of those. I should own one of those. Right? Let's look it up real quick. P320. Right here. And I'm sure he had a custom one. This is a full size. We're just going to go with the full size. Details. 2 17-round or 10-round magazines right there. So the ability to have a 17-round magazine. I imagine that's what Alex Preddy had, right? I guess there's a potential he had a smaller one. But he did have a P320. I would argue they want to make him a felon. There was the Democrats we reported on here that had an AR-15, either a 20-round or a 30. I think it was a 30-round magazine. 30-round magazine slung to his chest, protecting his neighborhood, right? Democrats who are supportive of the Second Amendment now. You just heard them say it in this press conference, but the bills say something different. And that is from the guy I think was part of the Democrat Socialist Gun Club or Rifle Association, whatever they call themselves. It's so crazy. Oh, man. Okay, so then, you got these nut jobs. And, of course, according to Zach Stevenson, and I think this is where the Democrats lose most people, the blame is widespread. It's not just Trump. It's, also the Democrats, the mayors, and all that kind of stuff. But if you ask Zach Stevenson, the lead of the Democrats in the House, no, it's all Trump's fault.
From the Trump administration onto local law enforcement. And that's abominable. There's only one entity that's responsible for what happened in Minnesota these last 6 weeks. It's the Trump administration. It's not local law enforcement. And for representative,
I mean, how can anyone believe what you're saying there? We just all saw it. Alex Preddy was very obviously inside of an operating area, and there was no one really cordoning off. You've watched the video 100 times, right, guys? I mean, if there was just local law enforcement helping and assisting in these operations, let's say legitimate operations, right? Then they're going to cordon off an area. And so Alex Preddy is never even in that potential or that area where he could possibly have that interaction with the federal agents. But instead, the federal agents have to do that. They're doing whatever the operation is at the same time, trying to block off pedestrians from getting in the way. And then obviously mistakes are made. So it's an insane position. And that's what Minnesotans believe this. I think it was KSCP, and we read the poll here. I mean, most Minnesotans agree that local law enforcement should assist in these ICE operations because guess what? People do think that immigration laws should be enforced, and that's what ICE is doing. So I blamed the Trump administration. I clearly have blamed things that Kristi Noem did and Greg Bovino. No doubt we blame that. And I don't think the Alex Preddy shooting was justified. And Renee Good doesn't look like it was a justified shooting. And we've documented the civil rights violations by ICE agents. It doesn't mean all ICE is bad or that their mission is wrong, but I don't think Metro Surge was a good operation in the end. I don't think it was a success. But maybe it could have been. Maybe we could have had cooler heads prevail from the beginning instead of Jacob Fry and the crazies that run Minneapolis making a sanctuary city. We could actually enforce immigration laws and the local cops could assist. But maybe that's asking too much because the Minneapolis base of voters are crazy and they don't want that. And they don't want any enforcement of immigration laws. And everyone's welcome in their neighborhood. Well, not in their house, right? But they're welcome in the neighborhood and taking resources away from taxpayers. Okay. But the Democrats are unified on this. That's my point. Is the Democrats spent a whole session, introduction on that topic. And there's no doubt what they are doing is fighting for their base. And their base is loony on this, right? Don't mix my words here. They are lunatics on it. But they're fighting for their base. They stay on topic, their message. So what do the Republicans offer, right? Should be, we don't have to say the alternative because quite frankly, maybe the Republicans want something else. And I would argue the Republicans should have something else and it should be fraud, fraud, and fraud.
Thanks for joining us today.
Let's go to the Republicans.
Stand ready to get to work in what will be the start of another tied legislative session. Last session, House Republicans did work extremely hard to make life better for Minnesotans. And we're back this session to build on those wins. And you'll hear a little bit more about those.
By the way, do you guys feel like there were wins last session? I mean, I don't. I've heard a lot of excuses. Oh, we need to take the majority. We had a split session, right? I don't know where the wins are.
Our priorities this year are and remain the same as last year. We're here to stop the fraud. We want to make Minnesota affordable, safe, and competitive. We're looking to reduce the mandates and raise standards in education and ensure that Minnesota tax dollars help the Minnesotans that they're meant to help. So with that, I'm going to turn it over.
There you go. That's the leader of the whole caucus. That's the Speaker of the House, Lisa Demuth, who's also running for governor, and just put out a laundry list of things. So we're not staying on one message, which seems to me like take back the fraud issue. But no, we're just going to put out a laundry list. So she turns over to Majority Leader Harry Niska, who's also got the laundry list.
Leader Harry Niska to share a little bit more about some of the work that we're going to be doing.
By the way, I just got to make this comment. You know, Don Gilman, who's right behind Harry Niska, to his right, our left, she's playing this role. You see this happen all the time. There's a role in these press conferences. You got to have the smiley person that's always agreeing and nodding their head. You know, everything's hunky-dory. Everything's good. We're all a unified team. They're just like, it's like they're props. The show is such a, they think it's a great show. It's not a good show. No one's tuning in to the show. What do we get? Like 460 views. This is the whole Minnesota legislative session. Most people don't care, right? Anyhow, just a show. It's a little side note there.
Republicans have made stopping fraud a priority for this biennium, and we're going to keep working on that this year. We have House File 1, which is the OIG bill, having an independent inspector general. That's going to be a top priority. And remember, a similar bill passed the Senate 60-7, but Democrats in the House blocked it from moving forward. We're going to continue working on that. We're also introducing the Fraud Isn't Free Act, which creates consequences for agencies and commissioners who allow fraud to occur unchecked. And we're also introducing a bill to create statutory guidelines for programs at high risk of fraud. The departments that enabled the fraud cannot be trusted to fix the problem themselves, and we'll have legislation about that. Just as a reminder, the OLA report on fraud just recently saw employees backdating and making up documentation, something Judy Randall hadn't seen in over 30 years with the OLA's office. And as far as we know, no one has faced consequences for that. We'll also be focusing on making Minnesota affordable.
Okay, we're done with fraud now. That's it. It's almost like we got to rush through this stuff. You hear the Republicans have like no emotions into this thing. It's like we just got to run through this kind of stuff. We're just fast paced. I mean, even look at the posture. Oh, Don stopped smiling. I guess she'll get back into it. But Lisa's just like, read the next thing. You got what's her name? Barry up there on the top left. Berryman, what I can't remember her name. Jesse knows these people up better than I do these days. Not even smiling, right? Like this is what the Republicans have. What are you fighting for? Well, I guess apparently Harry Niska is going to fight for affordability. Let's hear them out.
And to make Minnesota affordable, we're introducing bills to bring down healthcare costs by establishing a permanent reinsurance program.
The permanent reinsurance program. Do you know what that is? It's a joke. It's crony capitalism, where the government covers the reinsurance of, big insurance bills. So like I think it's over $250,000. Like if there's some major treatments, the government comes in and they're the payer. Like it's almost nearly impossible for you to opt out of the government healthcare system anymore. Because God forbid you have some very expensive cost. The government is going to automatically, through the reinsurance bill, we've been very outspoken about this going back to like 2017 when they first introduced it, but that's how they bring down costs. And really, it doesn't bring down costs. It maybe stabilizes them to a bit. It takes away the liability for insurance companies of their most expensive claims. But it's government. It's just government going in. Like, so you're robbing from our left pocket to pay our right pocket. That's what you're doing. It's like, where do you get the money to pay the insurance companies for the reinsurance part? It's not growing on trees. You're just robbing us to pay. You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Requiring cost defrayal for any new healthcare mandates. We have a bill to establish a commission to tell us why property tax increases are continuing to happen.
We need a commission for that. Boy, do they, you know what? I did look up this bill. Let's look this up real quick. Do they have money appropriated? Here we go. Property tax force established and report required as introduced. Is there a cost to this? Membership task force must consist of following members: 2 state representatives, 1 appointed by each co-chair, 2 state senators, 1 commissioner of revenue, 1 county commissioner, 1 mayor appointed, the school board member appointment. Okay, duties. They don't have any any cost on this thing. Okay. I was just wondering if they're going to. I was just wondering if they were going to actually also make us pay for this commission. I guess the members are already government employees, so it's just part of their duty. And it's established to investigate causes of property tax increases across counties, school districts, cities, and towns. You need a commission for that? We've talked about this on the show. When you have an unaffordable government, because quite frankly, we keep printing money to solve our problems, and so that creates higher prices in our economy, and those higher prices aren't only for you and me, they're also a government pays. And so it trickles down, and governments now, who just seem like immune to actually cutting anything, also have larger budgets because the prices of goods and services they use have gone up, including healthcare, which is a big part of their budgets. So there you go. I just saved you time. This is the Republican solution to affordability. It's some bullshit commission, some task force. We're doing something. We got a task force. No, you're not. You're not doing anything. Let's continue on.
And we want to conform with federal policy to cut taxes on tips, and overtime, so Minnesotans can keep more of their hard-earned money.
Okay, obviously good. Not going to help you and me, but if you're, earning tips, the federal government, thanks to Trump's bill, I'm sorry, I hate to say it that way. I was against the bill, but it was wrapped into the big, beautiful omnibus bill. But that was a good portion of it. Doesn't tax tips, which are gifts, in my opinion. So they want to conform with that. Not bad, but that's not solving any issues right there for most of us.
Minnesotans have had a hard couple of years with Democrats spending an entire $18 billion surplus and raising taxes by another $10 billion, still driving us into a deficit. House Republicans are here to reverse that damage to family budgets.
No, you're not. You guys don't do jack shit about it. You guys never advocated to give it all back. And yes, I don't think a single Republican voted for the tax increases, but you didn't really vote in any tax decreases, and you voted for more government. And by the way, we always talk about tax increases or like literally tax increases, like we raise the percentage or whatever, but it's really more government spending, which they did. And you can just look at it. Here's the fiscal year. This is fiscal year 2026, 2027. This is right. You can Google this yourself. This is Minnesota management budget, current estimates of state budget. And so we just got done with this biennium right here. That's the fiscal year 2024 and 25. Now we're at fiscal year 2026 and 27. And you can see we are starting with $10 billion, $10.3 billion of money. Okay, that's the beginning balance. And the revenues are about $66.3 billion, and the spending is $70.3 billion. And that is Republicans and Democrats' budget together. Republicans in the Minnesota House and Lisa Demuth pioneered this, a big compromise with the Democrats, to overspend by $4 billion and rob you and me of our money. So you can see after we take that $10.3 billion that we have right now as a budget surplus, then it only goes down to $6.2 billion by the end of this biennium, which will be next summer. And then they still rob us. They put $3.4 billion in a budget reserve, just a rainy day fund they never use. It should go back in our pockets. And what's left over? $2.5 billion still in a budget surplus. And Republicans can do something about it. They can lead. You want life more affordable? Harry Niska, Lisa Demuth, Republicans in the Minnesota House. You right now should be pioneering this whole give it all back. But you're not. Like you do a press conference and it's lame and no one's even paying attention. It's got like a gazillion things in it. And obviously the people would love to hear about fraud, some real things to solve that. But at the end of the day, like really people want, and I would actually put the two together. You solve fraud to save taxpayer dollars and you give the money back. Because a lot of us are pissed off that our taxes are high and you still have money left over, even though you tell us it's deficit, and that's fake news. That's not true at all. You can see the numbers right here. They're referring to a potential deficit if government keeps growing, and it shouldn't grow because you guys are talking big on government spending. All right, let's continue on.
Additionally, we're going to focus on making Minnesota safe. To make Minnesota safe, we have bills to hold criminals accountable by requiring repeat offenders to serve their sentences, and a bill to increase sentences for repeat gun criminals. We're also working on a bill for judicial accountability and transparency. We've had a troubling run of judges allowing violent criminals out to reoffend without more than a slap on the wrist. That needs to stop, and Republicans are going to work on that to prevent Minnesotans from continuing to suffer.
By the way, I'm just going to read Brad's comment. It's so perfect. Digging into the minutia of legislation is a bad idea for the Republicans. You connect with voters using broad strokes. It's just one-on-one, like 101, like messaging 101. And they're trying to get in the minutia. And yeah, you don't even see the smile on Don's face anymore. She's already bored. It's so bad. Continuing on.
Because of that judicial activism. We also have a school safety bill that we're working on that will include public schools and safe.
And the posture, at least at Damuth, in my opinion, is, are we done yet? Let's go. Hurry up. I got things to do. You know, like this is even important.
Public schools and safe school revenue, expand flexibility on funding for school safety personnel, and give one-time grants for facility improvements. Our students, teachers, and school staff deserve a safe learning environment, and our school safety plan will give concrete steps to make that happen.
The next area is specifically in education, where we talk about raising standards.
All right. And I think you guys get the sense of it. And I mean, you literally watch the Democrats do a whole press conference, and this is the start of the legislative session, and they focus on one issue, and it's where the people of their base are. And, you know, if you're going to look at the people in their base, like overwhelmingly are going to be wanting answers on how you're going to solve fraud. And I just looked at this bill, and we'll dig into the Office of Inspector General is not going to do jack shit. We all know that. You know, creating a new government position is not going to do jack shit about solving fraud. I'm looking at the fraud isn't free bill. We'll score that. We'll talk about that maybe Thursday. But I don't think anyone's really got a lot of hope you guys are going to solve anything. You just want to blame everything on Walz, and you know, he does deserve a lot of blame, like, right? But how about you solve something? How about we start defunding these programs? You know, I don't trust these guys one bit when it comes to money, and I'll tell you exactly why. This is Lisa Damuth in her own words during this press conference talking about the state budget. 1 second.
Priority that we're going to talk about.
What about bonding bill? Typically, this is a bonding year. I haven't heard anyone talking bonding. Is it unlikely to happen?
So bonding is something that we will be discussing. Our chairs have been out doing their work this entire year, looking at projects. We know there were things that didn't get over the finish line. If you remember last year, we did pass a very good bonding bill, $700 million, just over $6 million of cash. Roads, wastewater treatment, bridges, those kind of infrastructure statewide are what are important. As far as how it is going to go this year, we have our Ways and Means co-chair here, Representative Torkelson. Our state does not have money right now, and that is a choice that was made over time. And so that has to be considered. There are projects that definitely...
What are you talking about? Once again, the state has plenty of money. The state has $10.3 billion of money. That's what was left over in the budget surplus after last biennium. You guys chose to spend $4 billion of that surplus because you couldn't actually balance the budget. You know, and you hear Lisa Damuth going, well, we got the largest spending reduction in history. And it's like, no, you didn't. Oh, well, yeah, maybe technically you did, but you still are overspending. Like, don't tell us that you are getting some reduction in government here. No one really believes that. The Democrats blew through this wad of cash, this big surplus. By the way, Republicans weren't there fighting to keep it and give it back. I'm sorry, they were there to keep it in the government hands so that the Democrats could get in charge and spend it. But you should be doing that right now. But we look at the budget. I mean, she gets this, and they actually ask her later on about the upcoming February forecast. Did she even read these things? Like, it literally says, even if they change no policy, there's still going to be money left. So what are you talking about? And by the way, I don't want to hear about it going to more government projects. Reduce other parts of government. You know, I don't know. There's only billions of dollars in fraud. Reduce that and put those in those local projects. Give our money back. You overtaxed us. It's ridiculous. All right. Let me see if I caught everything I wanted to talk about here today. Walz says give a second minute constitutional rights. Yep, and yep. Okay. This is the problem I have. We have just lackluster people up at the Capitol. And I really think we need some standouts here. I think that if we don't have some principled conservatives messaging right and leading the way, the trajectory right now is going way in the Democrat favor. Like if you don't realize this, you don't even have to read the polls, but the polls are showing this right now. We see like a Texas plus 18 district for Republicans swinging going Democrat, right? So it's very obvious through polls and some of the midterm special elections that things aren't going well for the Republicans. But you just know by the mood, right? Trump is losing his base. You could almost consider me part of his base in this regard, right? Like, I voted for Donald Trump. I can't stand the guy anymore. Like, what he has been he's been in the wrong position on a lot of things, including Epstein, which I can't forgive him on this kind of stuff. But all of a sudden calling omnibus bills that grow government big and beautiful and more military intervention overseas. These aren't big wins. I wanted the big wins. I wanted to audit Fort Knox. I wanted to end the Department of Education. I wanted DOGE. These things aren't happening. The wins that Trump is amounting aren't enough for me to be so excited. And I'm not the only one. This has shown up in polls as well. Some of you guys might go, oh, Trump is the best president. He's still doing a good job. But you got to realize that isn't most Republicans anymore, right? They're getting demotivated. And so the surge right now is the Democrat Party. Even before the ICE operations, they were getting mass crowds for no King's protest. They are surging, and Republicans are not. And so, yes, Republicans need to go a different route, right? They need to take some bold moves. And by the way, the bold moves might actually help them out in November. But even if it doesn't, at least you can get some wins before the inevitable collapse of your election results. It's like a win-win situation. That's why I always say it's a win-win. Stand on principles, right? Because you might actually get some policy changed, which is really good. That's what we should all be for. Or the voters will go, you know what? That is a bold statement. That is where I'm at, and I'm on board with you, right? But if you're just going to come out there with these let's just go back here. I got to show you this. This is so ridiculous. This is the Republican House puts their this is called the North Star comeback. This is the messaging by the Republicans. The North Star comeback. It takes you, this graphic takes you, what, a minute to read? Right? This is ridiculous. Stop the fraud. Raise standards, reduce mandates, Minnesota tax dollars to Minnesotans, make Minnesota safe, make Minnesota affordable, make Minnesota competitive. It's the North Star comeback. Come on. Come with me. Let's go take back the North Star. It's so dumb. Oh, man. Anyhow, back for liberty. The great young William says special elections don't predict generals. Well, they don't predict them, but I think a lot of us know what's going on. Does anyone disagree with that? Do you disagree that the Democrats are surging right now, that they're looking better for this upcoming midterm? Does anyone disagree with that statement? I would love for you to be right, but I don't think you are. I think there's a lot of signs. Sometimes politics is the feel. You got to get the feel, and the feel is not going great for Republicans. And I would argue that part of that reason is that's what we get, we get the North Star comeback with a gazillion words on it. We don't even know where to stand on it. And even if you say bold statements, we don't believe you because you never do it. You could talk about making life affordable for us, but you ain't going to do it. You can make it affordable. You can give our tax money back right now and surplus rebate checks, but you don't do it. Democrats are going to stand up and they're going to get some concessions this legislative session on ICE operations. They've shown it. What are you going to get? What are you going to get? Nothing. So there you go. Need some bold conservatives, standing up, leading the way, not compromising. Hell, I just gave you one example. Work with Chris Finke. Support the no mask bill, which we like for COVID, right? But let's partner that up with ending emergency powers. Maybe the Democrats won't come on board with the whole Never Again bill. Maybe they could pass the Bill of Rights part of the Never Again bill. Let's get some concession on the Democrats when it comes to emergency powers. Let's team up on that one. Brad Ganser's got a $5 Rumble rant. My party has a platform that discusses lower taxes and less government. Let's start with holding the existing legislators accountable. Go to the convention and vote the bums out. That's right. You guys can take action. You guys can go to your conventions of your delegates and choose somebody else. Or you could step up and run. Now's the time. LK to live. Republicans are not surging because rhinos are waiting Trump out, and too many conservative political commentators are all doom and gloom. Come on, it's only been a year. Can we find a way to acknowledge some wins and progress while keeping pressure on for more MAGA policies? The reason I'm sounding this alarm is because, we don't have time. That's the way I look at this. We don't have time. If I could see Trump going the right direction in a lot of these things, yes, then I would concede that. But when I see him literally working to, not be transparent on this criminal pedophile ring that was at the highest levels of government, I'm like, you lost me there. You don't have me like that. I'm principled, man. No, you fought hard against the release of the Epstein files. And what we've learned from the most recent one is just amazing. You guys know that CEOs of big corporations are resigning because of this latest release. Big things are happening. And we're not even through all this stuff yet. You can go back to our last episode. I interviewed Dave Benner about that. It's crazy. And Trump was resisting that. And Trump wants to increase the Pentagon budget by 50%. And we're already $38 trillion in debt, which is a big problem. And by the way, when we look at the Republicans saying we want to stand up a task force to understand why property taxes are so much, well, let's just be honest here. We have an unaffordable government, and they print money to bail out. So basically, they buy up the treasury bills, and that printing money deteriorates the dollar's value, and that way prices go up, and governments pay for those same prices that are going up. And so it's not some big mystery. We just save the time of the task force. So, yeah, that's why it's doom and gloom, because it is doom and gloom. You have to understand that. But there is a way out of it, and it's our principles, right? It's our principles, the conservative principles, less government, more individual power, more power for the family, right? Those are the solutions. Reduce the size of government, put the money back in our hands, give us our freedom back. Freedom is a popular message. That's the solution right there. I should talk more about that. I just wish that Trump was more on board with those kind of things, right? And I see Beck for Liberty says, all thanks to Thomas Massey. And yes, I'm paying attention a lot to what Thomas Massey is doing. Okay, let's end there. Let's bring, I'll save the rest for the post show. If you're a premium subscriber, we'll be live on the post show 30 seconds after this show is over. If you're not, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us. It helps us out quite a bit. Otherwise, on Rumble, you can click on join us on the top. Let's see here. Thank you to Alpine Country in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota, outside of the liberal zombie apocalypse in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Also brought to you by EliteGuardianMN.com. I will probably have my next concealed carry course up pretty soon by popular demand. A lot of people are wanting to take the course right now, so we'll get that up here very soon. We'll be back on Thursday, and we keep putting out videos every day, so hopefully you guys can catch up on that. If you just joined us late in this, I know it's a live feed, go back and watch the beginning. We preview the legislative session. We'll see you guys on Thursday for our Premium Insiders. I'll see you in 30 seconds. Take care. Bye-bye.